Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Columbus, Georgia, and it is time for the tea. Tea Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. I'm back! Yes, I have been out for a few weeks. I was sick one week, out for my birthday, but we're back. I think that I just probably needed some time, just probably a little burned out and all that good stuff. But immune system is together, well rested, ready to take you out into this fall season. I want to thank everybody for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate you. Yeah, half a century. And I think I like it over here. As I've been talking to people who have hit that 50 milestone, a lot of them are just talking about how their perspective has shifted to them being more intentional about living life and not being as concerned about the things that used to give them a lot of stress and anxiety earlier. And so I'm looking forward to being in that space. Let's do it. Let's be good stewards of living the lives that we have left. Because, you're in that space where you got more years behind you than you do ahead of you. You think more about making sure you're being intentional about your time. So, as I was thinking about where to go, do I pick up with the transitions? How do I want to navigate? And I've been thinking about this topic for a while because I hear a lot of people talking about it. And as we are moving into this fall season, getting ready for the upcoming holidays, with the furloughs and all of the stress going on, SNAP benefits being cut off starting November 1, insurance premiums go up. I know a lot of people are in this open enrollment season and just really just trying to navigate all the uncertainties. This is a time where people really start thinking about who their support system is, who is in what I call that contact list. And I know that some of you, if you're like me, there's contacts you've had in your phone for a long time, people you haven't talked to, you don't even remember who the contact is. And you may or may not go through and delete it, but I do think that it's important for us to update our contact list as we prepare for this fall season. So let's get into it. So, if you are on social media at all, you are very familiar with this concept of no contact. It is probably in your reels, in your feed at some point, if not weekly, then definitely monthly. And what a lot of people are talking about is going no contact. So I really think it's important for us to understand no contact versus what I call limited or intentional contact. I want to get into it. No contact actually started from a psychological concept of establishing boundaries, and it was primarily used to assist people with breakups. Right, so the no contact was I'm going to be very intentional and create these rules and guidelines that I'm not going to talk to this person typically for about 30 days. And the 30 days was an opportunity to really reflect and understand the dynamics of the relationship. Who was I in the relationship? Was this relationship healthy for me? And with a 30-day no contact, particularly if it was a bad breakup, it allows you to kind of go through that grief phase. You put plans in place so you don't reach out to the person. You don't end up going back into this dynamic if it was unhealthy, spiraling. You all know you get lonely, you miss them, you reach back out to them, and then y'all going back and forth and back in this unhealthy dynamic. And it also encouraged you during that 30 days to find other things to focus your time and attention on, things that usually were something that was going to promote wellness. And it allowed people to be able to truly separate from sometimes people that weren't really healthy, or if the breakup was really a hurtful one. And you all know when you're in that breakup space, that first 30 days can be a little rough. Um, But after that first couple of weeks, you start seeing the symptoms kind of looking a little better. You might still be struggling, but then you're able to have some clarity, and possibly be able to recognize, like, hey, better off without the person. And when you don't see them on social media, it helps, right? Because then you're not like, oh my gosh, they're already in a relationship, and you know how we'll stalk folks and get another account and check and all of those things. So that's where it originally came from. Now, what it has kind of morphed into is this concept of not having any communication with, not engaging with, not being connected on social media, not being around people, and this could be family members, and particularly family members who have wronged you in some way. They might be family members who have protected people that have mistreated you. The folks that say, well, that's still family no matter what. Even if this person has stolen from you, or they've sexually assaulted you, or they've lied on you, or they have tried to tear down everything you've done, or they're jealous of you. It also could be in friendships that are non reciprocal, and we're like, I'm absolutely going to give you the energy you give me, which is none. So if I don't call you, you don't call me. If I don't invite you, I'm not getting invited. So no contact, kind of a quiet breakup, if you will. And then there are potentially, people that you may have worked with, for example, who you go no contact with because the environment that you left wasn't a healthy work environment. And so, you know how people are still like, oh, they want to tell you what the gossip of the job is and let you know about those people who were unhealthy supervisors or managers. And you're like, I don't want to be roped back into that. So when I left this job, I left all of that drama too. So no contact. And again, 30 days is a guideline, but it's really more important to just understand whatever the rules are going to be. So it could be cutting off all communication, no text, no calls, no social media stalking, but it also could be that you are taking that time to really grieve, and be able to kind of purge the relationship dynamics, the work dynamics, the family dynamics, because you know that it leads to all of these very strong emotions, and there's this pain, and it can really affect your mental well being and how you see yourself. It allows you to be able to really explore your patterns of behavior in relationship to whoever, whether it was a family member or somebody you were dating or the job. Like, I am so different when I'm not working there. I am so different when I'm not in this relationship with this person. Why am I so different? And trying to understand where that comes from. I also think that it is definitely an opportunity to then think about who your identity is outside of that relationship. So, who am I if I'm not dating this person, if I'm not working at this place, if I don't have these benefits that I might have perceived were associated with this connection to the family? Who am I in terms of the values that I want to have versus maybe what I exhibited when I was in connection to this person or this situation or this job. It also allows you to be able to re examine your needs. What is it that I truly want, deserve, and desire from engagement with a partner or with a job? And it allows you to be able to better evaluate what the benefits and the costs were. Because I think a lot of times when we're in a situation, we have a perspective that's a little bit skewed, right? So oftentimes why people have difficulty ending relationships is because they focus on the good aspects of it. Why people have difficulty leaving jobs is because this is what I know, it's comfortable, right? And so I think about, like, oh, I have more benefits, but I really don't examine it from a clear lens. I'm like, no, actually, like, I don't sleep well when I know I have to go to work because of the stress. I've been having problems with being able to think clearly. I'm in a bad mood. I have a lot of tension and pain in my body. There is dread. My anxiety is up. I feel more depressed. I am snappy and irritated with people. I don't want to do anything because I'm fatigued and tired. This person controls every aspect of anything we do. I don't get to have a say. I don't feel like I have a voice. It is a friendship where you pick me up and put me down when it's convenient for you. So when you have other people to hang out with, I'm not important to you. And so then I don't feel good about myself and I don't feel like I'm worthy. And I'm looking at your posts with these other people. You're keeping me a secret, but you're out with these other folks, right? So we don't think about that when we're in the dynamic because we're getting something from it, even if it's a small benefit. And sometimes we'll make it seem like it's much bigger. But when you're able to do that no contact and truly evaluate, then you get to see it for what it is. And I tell people, like, write it down so you can really get a clear sense. Go through examples. Think about times when you've been really hurt, the stuff that we like to push back sometimes and not want to deal with, so that you get a clear picture of what your experience was with a person or a situation or in a job environment. Now, there are some benefits to going no contact because sometimes you're not going to be able to get closure. Sometimes people will hurt you, leave you, mistreat you, lie on you, steal from you, and you don't know why. They're never going to apologize for it. Sometimes they won't even acknowledge that it happened. Sometimes people die and you don't get a chance to have that closure with them, or that there are people that will cut off contact with you, or they're, if you want to talk about that, they don't want to talk about it, but anything else they want to pop up and talk about that. But it also can be beneficial when you continuing to have contact with somebody could be detrimental to you, or it could lead you, as I talked about previously, back into this old pattern, this cycle of behavior that we engage in, where honestly I talk a lot about it feeling like self-harm behavior because you're not prioritizing what you deserve. You are accepting whatever a person will offer you to have them in your life for whatever reason. And so when you engage with them, they're going to talk you out of it. They're going to say, oh, no, that's not what happened. That's not it. You're being sensitive. Your expectations are unrealistic, like I do, right? And so then you're questioning yourself. And so you already know, like, this person is a wordsmith. They're going to figure out how to say something to me that's going to draw me back in. And I don't want to be in that place. And so no contact allows you to not have to do that. I think sometimes no contact also is an easier way for a person to set a clear, consistent boundary, because when you are in the negative space of sometimes being in these dynamics, then you're much more likely to compromise and accommodate and be forgiving and allowing. And so it doesn't really allow you to be able to fully heal and grieve, because we'll say, like, oh, I can be friends with my ex, or oh, I want to still have this person in my life, or oh, like, this is one of my oldest and dearest friends, so I don't just want to throw all of that away, all of these years we've had together. And so because of that, we end up losing ourselves and getting away from the boundaries that we set. So no contact, that takes that temptation away. And so I don't have to worry about falling back into that or being caught up in that when I just go no contact. I think also too, people can be very emotionally manipulative. They can blame you. They won't take responsibility for their behavior. And so what happens is people will get some confusion, right? Like, was that a real thing? Like, did that happen? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe I am taking things too personally. So you question yourself a lot. And when you go no contact, you have more clarity because you have been able to write those things down, possibly get in some therapy. You knew you were going to get your plug for therapy. And then that way you're really understanding the dynamics. And so I don't need to go back and forth with somebody about them in order for me to know that they're real and they're valid and they're true. And so no contact takes away that pressure of having to try to prove that what you experience, you really experience. I think too, when we have patterns of codependency, we overfunction and people underfunction. We engage in people pleasing. We're seeking a lot of external validation from people. We tend to be the people to be more flexible and allow other people to get what they need and us less so. Then when you go no contact, it allows you to be able to break some of those patterns. So you can be more self reliant and self loving instead of that pattern of being so dependent on having this dynamic, this person, this relationship, this job, this title in your life that you will sacrifice yourself for it. And so it can break those patterns simply because I've eliminated the trigger. And while I'm working on myself, I don't have that temptation. It also is just a lot of stress when you engage in relationships or job environments where you're having some of those dynamics that I just talked about. And so instead of you getting into an argument with people, a person, or there being some kind of threat of harm to you, or people trying to twist your words and put them up somewhere, or you being put in a situation where you're going to be abused or mistreated as punishment, because what some people will do is they will retaliate. So because they don't like the fact that you're leaving them, you're going no contact, and they don't have access to you, then they will try to get that access in these really dysfunctional and unhealthy ways. And so when you go no contact, it allows you to remove yourself from social media, from emails, from sites that you all shared, change those passwords on those accounts you still shared. And then it is less likely that a person will be able to access you in that way. Sometimes you have to change your patterns, particularly with people that are dangerous and unhealthy, because they will know your patterns and they will try to show up and pop up. And so when you put that no contact in place, sometimes people have had to even take it to a legal level to make sure that a person didn't have access to them. But it's another way to keep you safe. Now, there's always challenges whenever you are navigating dynamics in a relationship that involve some type of boundary, whether it's no contact and what I'll talk about in a bit, which is limited contact. And oftentimes, they're going to be very similar challenges. We always struggle with wondering if we made the right decision. There is that kind of push pull, back and forth thinking like, did I give up too early? Maybe I wasn't giving this person enough grace. You're taught to love people no matter what. Um, and a lot of it comes from the value systems that we may have seen around us. It could be the dynamics of people who are unhealthy, and we learn these unhealthy patterns from. Sometimes we misunderstand what being a believer, having faith, being a Christian, however you want to kind of identify your faith base, as like, oh, well, I should always treat people well no matter how they're treating me. Like God is not wanting you to be mistreated. But I think a lot of times people misunderstand that. And because of that, they allow people to treat them any kind of way because they think, oh, this is what being a Christian means. That's not it. And I think a lot of times people are very fearful about what their support system will look like if they no longer have this person in there, if they're no longer working at this job, because a lot of us will make friends at jobs. And so there's that fear of being left out or abandoned or alone. This fear that I won't ever have anything again. The something is better than nothing. And then I think too, there's always that residual of being in an unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy environment that leads to self blame and feelings of guilt. And so to soothe that, sometimes we will desire to reconnect with a person. It can feel like because the no contact and so there wasn't closure, that you don't feel like there was a final exchange, like, oh, well, I need to let them know. I need to let my job know. I need to let this ex know. I need to let this family member know. I need to let this friend know. And you don't. But oftentimes we feel like we can't have resolution until they understand and agree with, or I've said it to them. However, if you recognize the dynamics were unhealthy in the first place, then you also need to be clear about it is not going to matter what you say to this person. They benefited from you being in the space that you were in where they could get what they wanted from you. If you change that, they're not going to want to deal with that anyway. And I do think that when you're in the early stages of no contact, it feels like everything reminds you of this person. You can't hear a song, you can't eat a food dish, you can't go anywhere, you can put on things, somebody's going to look like them. And so it feels really, really like challenging to navigate from moment to moment early on. I do think also that we don't give ourselves enough time and understand that this is a grief process, right? So a grief process is ongoing, and then there are times when it's very painful. Um, Sometimes we want to numb that emotional pain instead of allowing ourselves to work through it. And then also that it takes time to get a new identity outside of this connection in this relationship that you had, or whatever you may have lost in terms of a job or a title, in you being able to follow through with the no contact. And so I think we have kind of unrealistic expectations of what that's going to look like, especially when you're like fed up and you're like, I'm just done, and you don't really put the things in place to go no contact. You want to actually have a plan. And that's my recommendation for you with no contact as well as limited contact. You want to have a plan. And that clarity of the plan is going to allow you to be able to put the mechanisms in place to allow you to cope with and navigate and manage all of the things that you're going to experience as a result of changing whatever the dynamic is. Now, if you are not in a place where you are able to go no contact for any number of reasons, then sometimes a good middle ground or a step in the right direction until you can get to a place where if no contact is what is absolutely would be the most helpful for you, that you can kind of work your way up to that by creating what I call limited or intentional contact. And what it does is it allows you to recognize the importance of your needs, and that you have to prioritize yourself over others when they are affecting your wellness. It allows you to be able to have some balance emotionally, but also protecting your personal space. It allows you to protect your belongings because, as we know, people will take things and damage them and not treat them well. It protects your finances because we'll overextend ourselves financially to be able to have these relationships with people. It protects your time. Also, for people who may be engaged in romantic relationships, it allows you to be able to have a little bit more body autonomy and create some of those healthier sexual boundaries. It sets those expectations for the relationships, and it outlines very clear guidelines for what I'm going to accept, what I'm not going to accept, right? Those rules of engagement. And then how I'm going to navigate when somebody violates that boundary. And I do think that limited contact can be really helpful for if there is a potential for a person to make some changes, but also if you recognize the limitations of who a person is, right? So, kind of let me give you some examples. We may have people in our family, maybe from different generations. Might be your grandparents, maybe some aunts and uncles, just depending on the dynamics, who, because they were born in a different generation, have just very different perspectives about things. They love you. They would do anything that they could for you, but they just gonna make some of those comments that you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe you said that, right? And so when I say being intentional or limiting, you know that you don't want to put yourself in a space where there's going to be something that they're going to have a negative comment about that you know is going to affect you negatively, whether that's who you're dating or what you're wearing or what you want to be called, right? And so you make space for them. Like, hey, I'm gonna stop by on my way over here to somewhere else. It may be that you're calling and checking on them. Hey, Nan, I love you. Okay, when the conversation starts going left, all right. Will you take care? I've got some other things I need to do. Love you, right? So you are setting the guidelines for how I'm going to navigate this relationship, understanding that this person is who they are. I cannot change them. Mindfulness, if you will. I cannot change who they are. This is who they're going to be. But I do love them and I know they love me. And I want to have space for them, but I want to do it in ways that aren't going to be damaging. And so I've learned to navigate what those guidelines might look like. This contact can also be really good for a parent who might just be emotionally unavailable. They're present, they show up, but they're not the person that you're going to go to when you need someone to comfort you. They are going to say something and you're going to be like, why did I call you? Or they're not going to offer you much. And so you understand where they are in terms of their strengths. So you're the person I can call if I want some advice about finances. You're the person I can call when I need some recommendations about this car or this home, or you're the person who I can contact about all of the different options for careers, right? So, like, you can give me practical sage wisdom in certain areas, or maybe in specific areas that are where your strengths lie, where your experience is, maybe where you've had some training, right? And then also, it might be that you balance it, right? So, hey, we can go out and do things together. Like, we can go enjoy a movie together, we can have a meal together, or it might be that we can do things where there's something active going on, but there's not a lot of conversation. And so you begin to learn how to navigate them. And that's the same for your siblings, your friends. You may have siblings or friends. They may only call you when they want something, or they may be the type of people that you can't take in all settings, but they're good in certain settings. They might be people who don't mix well with everyone, but they mix well with certain people. And so you can kind of be very strategic in how you engage them. And also, you can have a good conversation with them. And when it turns to them asking you for money, you already have your guidelines for how you're going to address that. And so they begin to get to a point where they either stop asking you, or they recognize that when they ask you, there's going to be a lot of things that they would have to do in order for them to be able to get those resources from you, right? And so you just know this is what they're going to do. This is who they are. I can't change them, nor is it my job to. I can't want things more than they want. They're fine in the job that they're in. They're fine living the way they live, but that's not the way I have to live. So I can be mindful of, hey, we can meet in a public space, but I'm not going to go to your home, or I'm not going to go to these certain things that you invite me to, but we can go over here, right? So it just allows you essentially to be able to have boundaries that you don't have to compromise or harm yourself in order to be engaged with this person. Like, here are the parameters. Once you start going left, that ends the conversation, or I'm going to leave the engagement, right? So if you know people, they start drinking, or they're talking to you in ways that are disrespectful. Yeah, I'm not going to talk to you when you're using that tone. I'm not going to talk to you when you're yelling. I'm not going to talk to you when you're cursing me out, right? All of these things. And so you then have the control over how the relationship goes with them on your time. Now, what they do on their own time in their own spaces, that's on them. But it also allows you to be able potentially to have engagement with them without you necessarily putting yourself in harm's way either. It This strategy can be really helpful too. Like, if you're just a person who tends to be overly involved in organizations, or you overtax yourself, or even at work, you take on a lot of things. This is kind of that people pleasing piece, or being a perfectionist, or wanting to have control, or wanting to really do things well. This allows you to be able to have the understanding of, they're getting it done. It doesn't matter if they get it done in the way that I would, but they're getting it done, and they're learning, and they're growing, and that's what it's about. It's not about me going through and proofreading and checking everything and being responsible for it. I have to know where I begin and they end. And so it allows you to be able to better navigate in those situations, but also for people that might just be difficult to work with. And so you recognize, like, hey, we do well when there's a project and we have a goal, and so we'll do that, but then there won't be all this extra communication outside of this. And this is how we best work. And so essentially, the limited contact, or the intentional contact, is really just about you creating healthy boundaries that will allow you to be able to kind of navigate different situations and different people, but not take that on, not feed the negativity, not go back and forth and engage in some of the things that are unhealthy aspects of them, or things that may be different value systems that, hey, we just don't see eye to eye on this. There are so many other things we can talk about. These topics can be off limit. Now, the benefits of limited contact is you still get to protect your space emotionally, physically, financially. Protecting your environment, But it allows you to be able to make room to have relationships with people who you still may want to have relationships with, and who the relationship dynamics can be good dynamics once they have the appropriate boundaries in place. It allows you to be able to be clear about your thoughts and your feelings and your needs outside of considering what that other person wants, or allowing them to manipulate you because they have something you may want. I see a lot of people will do this, like, oh, you can't see your niece or your nephew or your grandchild or your pet or whatever unless you do these things. But it allows you to be able to kind of separate that out. You don't feel responsible for other people and their happiness, and whether or not they manage their finances, and whether or not they can have relationships with people because they are really challenging. It allows you to have more, I think, full and loving and healthy relationships, because it allows you to be able to better get what you need. You manage your time more effectively. You're able to maintain your identity and your value system. You're able to recognize that you are an important person and that your needs are of value. It can prevent conflicts because, again, we've already set the rules for engagement, and let me be clear, the other person doesn't have to agree with those rules. They don't have to like them, but what they will do is respect them, right? Like, hey, you can choose to engage or not engage, but if you do engage, these are what the rules look like. And again, speaking earlier about that kind of independence, right, it allows you to be able to be more assertive, and it allows you to be able to have more autonomy in your relationships, and not allow other people to dictate the guidelines of engagement. It can cut down on a lot of conflict, and a lot of just emotional distress when you are limiting how people engage with you, particularly for people that you know just may be unhealthy. Like, sometimes people have mental illness, and we recognize that that is real and that is valid and that is true, but you also don't get a chance to just mistreat me because you have mental illness and you happen to be a family member or a friend of mine. Now, challenges is very similar to the no contact. It can be really difficult to be consistent with setting boundaries, and people may push back, right? Because they're not getting the same benefits from you when you have boundaries, when you allow them to treat you any kind of way. And then there are going to be people in other circles that you're going to be talking about boundaries with, who will say, well, oh, I lost my insert whoever here, and I would give anything to have a relationship with them, even if it was this. You don't want to let people go and do this. Life's too short, right? So they're giving you all this commentary about your decision. Then you start questioning yourself and experiencing guilt. And I do think sometimes people are just really so unhealthy that you're going to experience triggers with them. And so learning how to navigate those triggers is really important too. So with the no contact, you don't have to deal with that. But with the intentional contact, or the limited contact, you are still running that risk of being triggered by a person. And so it's really important, as we talk about having that plan, how am I going to manage when this person has a lashing out or a crashing out, as some people say, and they start spiraling, and how do I navigate that? So you still want to be really clear about, when you set those boundaries, of ensuring that you're not in spaces where you can't leave. And that's a really important context for that limited contact, is you want to be able to get off that phone. You want to be able to leave a space. You want to be in a safe, neutral space. You don't want to be held hostage in this person's car because they're the one that gave you a ride. And so it's really important for you to think all of those things through as you're making those guidelines and creating and setting those expectations. And oftentimes, you will make a decision in that limited contact space of whether or not this person needs to be a no contact. And so that's one of the things, is it just kind of is a kind of more gradual, allows you to plan, deal with some of those hard emotions before potentially launching into the no contact. Whatever you decide, I do think it is important for you periodically to go through your contacts and delete the people that you no longer have any contact with or don't want to have any contact with, because part of this journey is you want to remove people's access to you when they no longer have earned it, or the relationship dynamics have changed and you all just aren't in that space anymore, or this is a person who's a danger or a threat to you, right? And then you also want to make sure that you're making room for the new contacts, because one of the aspects of this journey is sometimes we have to create these healthier dynamics and relationships and contexts in our lives if we're removing some of the old ones, right? So this helps kind of buffer too, when you're able to have healthy dynamics in place, because it allows you to be reminded of what you deserve. All right. So whatever the context, make sure that you're able to be well.